when my youngest son looked me straight in the eyes and quietly said, "You should probably sell the house." Dad, I felt something inside me break. My wife had passed away only 6 months earlier, and this old farmhouse was the only place where I could still hear her laughter. In every room, I thought my children would stand beside me during the hardest time of my life. But I had no idea they had already made plans that didn't include me. What happened next changed everything. I stood on the front porch long after his car disappeared down the road. The wind moved through the old maple tree my wife planted on our first anniversary. Every corner of this house carried a memory. The kitchen still smelled faintly like the cinnamon pies she baked every Sunday, and her favorite rocking chair still faced the living room window. Selling this place never crossed my mind, yet my own son spoke about it as if it were just another piece of property. A few days later, a certified letter arrived. At first, I assumed it was another hospital bill or insurance document. Instead, it was a legal notice informing me that my children had filed a petition claiming I was mentally unfit to manage my finances. According to the paperwork, they wanted the court to appoint someone else to control my assets, including the house. My hands shook as I read every page again and again. I couldn't believe my own children thought I was incapable of making decisions. The worst part wasn't the accusation. It was discovering that my oldest daughter and youngest son had been secretly meeting with a lawyer for nearly 2 months, while they smiled during family dinners and asked how I was feeling. They were quietly preparing to take away everything I owned. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through every room of the house, remembering birthdays, Christmas mornings, and family I had worked 38 years as a mechanic to pay off this mortgage. Every brick carried a piece of my life. I wasn't fighting for a building, I was fighting for my dignity. The next morning, instead of calling my children, I called the attorney whose name had been recommended by an old friend. After listening to my story, he became unusually quiet. Then he asked one question that stopped me cold. "Mr. Carter, has anyone told you about the second will your wife signed 3 weeks before she passed away?" At that moment, I realized my children weren't the only ones keeping secrets. The attorney leaned back in his chair and carefully opened a thick brown folder. My heart was racing as he slid a document across the desk. At the bottom of the final page was my late wife's signature. I recognized it instantly. 3 weeks before Emily passed away, she came to my office alone, he said quietly. She told me she believed someone in the family was planning something behind your back. She wanted to make sure you would always be protected. I stared at the document without saying a word. My wife had never mentioned another will. We had promised each other there would never be secrets between us. Yet now, after her death, I was learning that she had seen danger coming long before I did. The attorney continued, "This updated will contains a special condition. No child can receive a single dollar of your estate while attempting to remove your legal rights or force you from your home. If anyone does, their inheritance is immediately revoked." I felt my hands trembling. My own children had unknowingly triggered the exact clause my wife had written to protect me. Then the attorney placed another item on the table. It was a small flash drive. "Emily also left this with instructions that I give it to you only if someone challenged your independence." When I plugged it into my laptop later that evening, a video appeared on the screen. My wife smiled gently into the camera, even though illness had already made her weak. "If you're watching this, it means I was right," she said softly. "Someone has tried to take advantage of your kindness. Please don't blame yourself. Your heart has always been too trusting. Promise me one thing. Don't let anyone steal the home we built together." Tears rolled down my face as I watched her final message. The next morning, my phone rang. It was my oldest daughter. "Dad," she said sweetly, "we were thinking maybe we could all meet for dinner tonight and talk." For the first time in months, I smiled, because I finally knew something they didn't. And by the end of that dinner, their entire plan was about to fall apart. That evening, I arrived at the restaurant 10 minutes early. My children walked in together, smiling as if nothing had happened. My oldest daughter hugged me for the first time in months, while my youngest son asked if I was feeling better. Their sudden kindness felt rehearsed. Dinner started with small talk, but I knew the real reason they were there. Finally, my daughter cleared her throat. "Dad, we've been thinking about your future. Living alone in that big house isn't safe anymore. Maybe it's time to move into a retirement community. We'd handle the house for you." I looked at both of them for a long moment before calmly asking, "Is that really what you want? Or is it what your lawyer wants?" The smiles disappeared instantly. My son froze. "What do you mean?" Instead of answering, I slowly placed a folder on the table. Inside were copies of the legal petition they had filed, the updated will, and the letter from my attorney. "I know everything," I said quietly. Neither of them spoke. Then, I pressed play on my phone. My wife's recorded message filled the room. "If you're watching this, someone has tried to take advantage of your father. Protect him, don't betray him." The color drained from their faces. My daughter burst into tears. "We never wanted to hurt you," she whispered. "But you did," I replied. "You decided I was a problem instead of your father." My son admitted that they had been drowning in debt. Credit cards, business loans, and missed mortgage payments had pushed them into a corner. Selling my house seemed like the fastest way to solve their financial problems. "So, you planned to take away the only home your mother and I ever built, without even asking me?" Neither of them could answer. As we left the restaurant, my attorney stepped inside with another man. He handed my children an official notice. "The court hearing is next Monday," he said, "and because of the updated will, attempting to declare your father incompetent may cost both of you your entire inheritance." For the first time, fear replaced confidence in their eyes. They realized this wasn't just about losing the house anymore. They were about to lose everything. The courtroom was completely silent as the judge reviewed every document. My children sat across the room, avoiding eye contact. Just a few weeks earlier, they had been confident they would take control of my home. Now, they looked frightened. My attorney stood and presented the updated will. The medical reports proving I was mentally healthy. And my wife's recorded message, every piece of evidence showed the same thing: I was fully capable of managing my own life. And my wife had predicted exactly what might happen after she was gone. The judge turned to my children. "Did either of you have medical evidence that your father was mentally unfit?" Neither of them answered. After a long pause, my daughter quietly said, "No, Your Honor." The judge sighed. "This court finds no evidence that Mr. Carter is incapable of managing his affairs. The petition is dismissed immediately." Then came the words my children never expected to hear. "Because this action violated the conditions of the updated will, the inheritance clause is now subject to revocation." The courtroom fell silent. My son's face turned pale. Everything they had tried to gain was slipping away. Outside the courthouse, my children finally apologized. They admitted that fear, debt, and greed had clouded their judgment. They asked for another chance. I looked at the house keys in my hand and remembered every promise my wife and I had made inside those walls. "I forgive you," I said. "But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. Trust has to be earned." Months later, I created a scholarship in my wife's name for students who wanted to become nurses. using part of my savings instead of leaving everything as an inheritance. I also updated my estate plan so my property would go only to family members who showed love, honesty, and respect, not those driven by money. My children slowly rebuilt our relationship over the following years. It wasn't easy, but this time it was built on truth instead of lies. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't taking everything from the people who betrayed you. It's proving that your dignity, your values, and your future were never theirs to take. The end.